Globally, he may be the most famous Sufi poet alive, despite being dead for 800 years. His poems are on every language, his name on every shelf. He's Rumi, Maulana, a man born in modern-day Afghanistan, and yet, modern fame has done something strange to him. Rumi is often presented as a floating mystic with no roots, spiritual voice detached from tradition, a soft, universal quote machine. But the Rumi who lived was not a vague mystic at the edge of religion. He was a devoted Muslim, trained in law, theology, Quranic sciences, and his symbolism is soaked into that world. A lot of Rumi quotes online are not even Rumi at all, and many popular translations fully remove the Islamic context, like stripping spice from a fine dish. So, if we're going to meet him, we'll meet him properly, in his own century, on his own road. Rumi was born in 1207 in the Eastern Persianate world, a region tied to Khorasan, with deep association with Balkh. This was a Silk Road universe. Persian was the language of culture, and Islam the intellectual frame. His father, Baha al-Din Walad, was a religious scholar and preacher, whilst also a mystic. That matters, because one of the biggest myths about Rumi is that he lived as a rigid scholar until a single moment changed him. But no, mysticism wasn't a surprise guest. It was already in the home. But the 13th century was not gentle. Power shifted. Dynasties bruised up against one another, and the Mongol warlords loomed over Eurasia like nasty weather. Rumi's family left the east and traveled west, a journey that would eventually chart through the Islamic world. They passed through major centers and cities such as Baghdad, formed pilgrimage, Hajj, to Mecca, and spent time in Syria. Syria would become a nest for the young Maulana, a period long enough for Rumi to become a man, and then eventually reach Konya. Konya, a city in Anatolia, modern-day Turkey, were a frontier of a different sort, a land with deep Christian presence and a growing Islamic scholar gentry. Konya became the home that gave him his name. Rumi means the one of Rum, the lands once called and owned by Rome. When his father died, Rumi didn't fall into poetry. He fell into responsibility. A senior disciple of his father's circle became his guide, and Rumi studied deeply. So deeply, in fact, that he spent years in places like Aleppo and Damascus, cornerstones of Islamic literature and poetry, returning not as a wandering bard, but as a formidable scholar. He was respected as a qadi, an Islamic judge, as an authority. Then, 1244, a man arrived in Konya, and everything tilted on its head. His name was Shams al-Din Tabrizi. Shams was not merely a wandering eccentric. He was educated, trained, sharp, and he carried a kind of spiritual electricity that frightened the higher society. Their first encounter, Shams and Rumi, is remembered in many different ways. But in just about every version, the feeling is the same. Shams didn't just meet Rumi, he struck him. And Rumi, ever the public scholar, leaned inwards. This Rumi, the same teacher of crowds respected in Konya, became a man willing to disappear. Weeks, months, anything when he was stuck in poetic trance. And thus developed a closeness so intense that even his students began to resent the new Shams. but it would be of his own accord that Shams would vanish, leaving no parting words, only smoke in the air. A smoke that begged for mirrors and yearned reflection. Thus, something new awakened in Rumi. Not a rejection of Islam or apostasy, but a deepening of the inner self, the ego. These gatherings began as sama, devoted listening, where music played the role of remembrance and motion as a prayer. Then the poems started, not polished literature for applause, but poems that were sporadic, perhaps erratic, that sounded like a man trying to survive beauty. He wrote as if the heart were a furnace and language melted. He wrote of love, but not only romance. More so love as the force that moves the cosmos. Love as the gravity that pulls the soul toward God. A fire that burns the ego. He produced massive bodies of poetry, including works associated with his former mentor Shams. And of course, one of his most famous works would be the great teaching epic, the Masnavi. True to its name, it were a real river of stories and spiritual instruction. Some even called it the Quran in Persian. In 1273, Rumi died. In the very city he had come to develop himself, Konya. And of course, the city mourned. Because he had become something rare. A spiritual voice that could speak to a whole city without flattering the truth of his own path. So, if you love Rumi, love him whole. Not as a quote stripped clean for aesthetics, but as a man rooted in worship, trained in Islam, and speaking in symbols that only fully bloom when you remember the soil they grew from.